Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. I got home quite late today and realised that I'd actually forgotten to make a video for all of you because I was planning to post tonight, but I've been in the lab all day and it just slipped my mind. So I tweeted out and said, guys, what should I make today? What do you want to see on my channel this evening? And I got a response from somebody called Let's Play PSN who said, Milo, do a vid explaining the origin of the summoning key. Now, normally, when I get messages like this, when I get tweets or comments or Reddit messages or whatever it might be, when I get this sort of thing, quite often I just have to skip past it because of the fact that a lot of the time, people ask questions that there are no answers to. They'll ask things like, explain, I don't know, explain what happens to Samantha and the rest of the children after they grow up in the house. And I'm sort of like, well, I don't really know. I can't make a full, 10, 15, 20-minute video about this because it would just be completely speculation. I can't explain anything. I can speculate by all means, but I don't really tend to speculate that often on this channel. More of the time, I'm focused on pumping out actual theories about things. And so, most of the time, I have to sort of skip past those sorts of requests. But, in this particular case of the origin of the summoning key, I have, I guess, a pretty damn good answer for you, because we know exactly what the origin of the summoning key was, which is really exciting. So, let's take a look at it. It's a cipher that was on the map, let's see, God Crovey. Thank you, GK, you were very fruitful with your ciphers. In fact, all of the Black Ops 3 maps really have been quite interesting with their actual cipher content, especially as the year has gone on. So, the message says the following. Kronorium excerpt 349561223. The summoning key is one of the oldest artifacts in all creation. It was used by the first one to mix all the dimensions with life, giving each one its unique balance. Under certain circumstances, it has the ability to form bridges between dimensions, allowing the transfer of life forces back and forth. It resides in the 63rd dimensions of creation. So, it's in the 63rd dimension of creation at the time of writing this cipher, but obviously, after the writing of this cipher, presumably after the writing of this cipher, Richtofen gets it, and he then goes on the journey of Black Ops 3, and, well, we all know where that ends up. But I'm going to come back to this point later, because it's actually really interesting to consider the idea that this might happen later down the line. And that's sort of what inspired me to make this video. I got the tweet, I thought about the actual origin of the key that we learn about via this cipher, and I thought, hold on, not only do we know the origin of the key, but we also potentially have a way of reinterpreting this cipher that we solved several months ago now that could be fascinating and related to the next Treyarch game. Okay, so, and I'm not just hyping this up for no reason, guys. This is actually a really cool little thought, in my opinion at least. So, let me explain. Kronorium excerpt 349561223 is pretty much just fluff. It's telling us that this is an excerpt from the Kronorium, sure, but the numbers aren't necessarily something we should invest too much thought into. Why do I say that? Well, Treyarch are notorious. In fact, it's almost become a little bit of an in-joke at this point, almost. They're notorious for being really poor with numbering systems. If you look at the terminal in the Black Ops 1 game files, for example, you look at that terminal, you look at the excerpts from the data Bjajan Stajan Jada, or whatever it's called, that thing, the terminal files where Maxis is talking about Sophia and about Sam and about just the entirety of the Doriz facility, and you've got entries from all sorts of characters in there, you've got John Banana mentioned in there, you've got Peter in there, all of it. And also in there is a numbering system that is just fully broken. It's absolutely awful. The moon radios, where you've got certain experiments here or there, fully broken. Call of the Dead, fully broken. Whatever map you want to reference or whatever, pretty much the numbering systems Treyarch use are just pretty crappy. They don't really follow much logic, as far as we have so far found at least, okay? So I wouldn't worry too much about the fact that it's Kronorium excerpt, specifically 349561223, but the rest of what it says is obviously very interesting. The summoning key is one of the oldest artifacts in all creation. That in itself isn't really news to us because, I mean, it's sort of to be expected, seeing as it's one of the most powerful artifacts in not just this universe, but every universe, like Richtofen says. It's not really a surprise that it would be also very old, But the fact that it says it's one of the oldest artifacts in all creation, rather than the oldest artifact, in my opinion, gets my imagination firing, because that means that there might be similar objects of similar power to the summoning key that could be used in conjunction with the key if someone were to come into possession of all of them for good, for bad, for evil, whatever it might be. They could be used together, or certainly, at minimum, they exist. There are other objects from the era in which the summoning key was created that hopefully still exist. Then it says, it was used by the first one to mix all the dimensions with life, giving each one its unique balance. This is fascinating because it mentions the first one. Who's the first one? A lot of people have said, well, the first one is Monty. Monty has dreamed up the idea of free will, as he says, or whatever, and so it would make sense for the first one to be Monty because he is initiating that process. But other people have said, well, Monty isn't this god that we are assuming him to be. He is not the first one, the god with a capital G that he is trying to liken himself to. What if, in fact, he's the snake? Not Noah J. What if instead he is the original source of corruption? The reason that people are given free will in the interpretation of some people in the community, in this case, in the zombies case, is Monty, is the snake, is that bite of the apple in the Garden of Eden. That is what breaks the framework, I guess, of the world that was then inhabited by Adam and Eve, and instead changed things up so that free will was established, they became self-conscious, all of that, the good old Bible story, and then the rest of humanity sprung forth from their fall from grace. So is Monty the first one? Well, maybe. It's arguable. It's also arguable against. I don't think that Monty's the first one. I reckon that there is some other being, some other something around that we don't necessarily know about yet. I don't think it's related to the Keepers. I don't think it's related to the Apothicons, because ultimately they're one and the same thing. I don't think it's related to Monty even. I think that there is some other being out there, some other entity of some kind that's a mystery, which is very exciting, but there's no evidence for it. So if you think that Monty's the first one, cool, that's fine, no problems there. It's just people's opinions at this point. We go on though. Under certain circumstances, the summoning key has the ability to form bridges between dimensions. Okay, that's pretty standard. I mean, you're capturing souls and things, so why wouldn't it be able to do things like build bridges between dimensions? Although, thinking about it, that's pretty damn epic, like holy guacamole. Despite that though, things like, for example, Richtofen opening the portal in Shadows of Evil and getting into the end cutscene and grabbing the key, that's still possible without the key because he doesn't even have the key when he initially opens the portal. So there's clearly other stuff that can do that too, other stuff that has that same ability, but the key certainly possesses that ability as well. The transfer of life forces back and forth is clearly referring to the capturing and then releasing of souls, which we've seen throughout Black Ops 3, so no surprise there, and then the fact that it resides in the 63rd dimension of creation. So let's talk about the two possible interpretations of this, because this really makes me happy as a theorist. I love moments like this, where we interpret things one way, and then later on, something happens, we look back and go, oh my goodness, my eyes have been opened. There is another way to consider this problem. There is another way to think about what might be going on here. Okay, so one interpretation, the vanilla, boring, standard interpretation, the standard model, if you will, is that the summoning key originally, at the time of the kronorium being written, just so happened to be in whatever the 63rd dimension is, and that's where it was. It was just lying around somewhere. That potentially is the Shadows of Evil universe. That is potentially the reason why Maxis needed Richtofen to read the kronorium, because he needed the location of the key. We knew that the kronorium contained the location of the key, and maybe this is exactly what Richtofen reads to say, oh, it's in the 63rd dimension. Boom, goes to Shadows, gets the key, sorted, can then do the rest of Black Ops 3. That's one interpretation, and that's the base level, normal one. But what if, after the events of Black Ops 3, the kronorium is added to? What if it updates itself? What if there is some process by which the writing in the book changes over time, or is added to over time, or evolves, or whatever, or is furthered by further volumes or something? And what if that added text is this message? Because in this case, we could say that the 63rd dimension could be the location of the key when we see it floating in space after the events of Black Ops 3, after the events of Revelations, and after the events of the Revelations end cutscene where Monty sends all of the Apothicons and the undead and everything into that universe and then closes it off. He finishes that universe. He deletes it from existence, but the key remains floating in space, in a mystery location. What if it's in universe, or dimension, 63? And that is where we are seeing, and that is what we are seeing in that space scene in that music video. And what if the person that has written this is potentially trying to get people to find it for whatever reason? Maybe they want another set of characters to come along and break the cycle. What if they themselves are looking for it and are doing their own research into where it could be, and maybe they can't access it, but they're just doing it for the sake of research? Maybe this is Monty's personal diary at this point, and he's just noting down where everything is so he can keep track of it all. Maybe his damn flowcharts are in this book as well at this point. Who knows? All things are possible here. That's the thing about having the key floating in space like they did in the music video. It really does leave things open in a very Origins-esque way. But whether or not that's the case or not, whether or not they're actually valid assumptions, whether or not they're actually valid suggestions, or the way Treyarch are meaning for this to be interpreted is subject to debate. It's all subject to debate. We can say either it's an old message from when the kronorium was originally written. We don't know who wrote the kronorium, but it was written, it has the location of the key in it at some point, and maybe that's all it's referring to. Or we can, if we so choose, with complete justification, say that this could be a later iteration of things, this could be a message from later on, and at that later on point in time, because the kronorium is prophetic as well, you have to remember that, at that later point in time, maybe the space universe is Dimension 63. So I'm probably going to title this video something like, could we have already seen the new key's location, or something like that. I'm going to frame it that way because I personally am in alignment with that idea. I think it's a really cool idea, and I think it would make the future a lot more interesting and exciting. You can absolutely disagree with it, that's fine, but that is what I'm going to go with from now on, I think, as one of my kind of pet theories that I'm going to sit on and incubate and hope for the best that it comes true. Okay? I've been MrRoflWaffles. If you've enjoyed this, let me know. Thanks once again to Let's Play PSN for the suggestion for the video. If you've got suggestions for stuff you want me to talk about that I might actually be able to give proper answers to, just like I've done in this video, then let me know in the comments down below. Leave a like while you're at it, and I'll be talking about this, Zombies in Spaceland, extremely soon. That's Infinite Warfare Zombies if you're not aware, because I might have to be the bearer of bad news for it. And I think you guys deserve to know. So that's going to be coming up very soon. I've been MrRoflWaffles, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!